got all these lights in the background. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, וללבן שתי בנות. So Laban had 2 daughters. So this whole story of Yaakov going to Haran and being with Laban, working for him for 7 years, and then marrying 2 of his daughters, so it must have some more significance than just the story itself, like everything in Sefer Bereshis. So the Arizal says about this many things, and in Chassidus it was elaborated some more. So let's see. So there are 2 types of letters, if you want. Letters meaning types of communication. A letter always is some kind of revelation, because a letter comes to reveal something. And really in Hebrew, letter means a siman, like a sign of something. So there's letters of machshava, the thought, there's letters of speech. Where does a person get more pleasure from? He gets more pleasure from speaking. That's why people speak without end, because they enjoy it, because it's a very pleasurable experience to talk.
Man is medaber.
Okay. At the deeper source, these letters come from what we call the concealed world and the revealed world. And this is what David HaMelech means when he says, I should walk before Hashem in the lands of life, in the plural, 2 lands. David HaMelech was, of course, in Eretz Yisrael, and his main project in life was to build the Beis Mikdash. Why did he want to build the Beis Mikdash? So he expresses it in the sense of Etalech lifnei Hashem be'artzot ha'chaim. I want to walk before Hashem in the lands of life, meaning that the land of Israel today, in David's time before he builds the Beis Mikdash, is only revealing one aspect of itself. And the land means also a revelation. It's a revelation of Hashem. So if there's lands of life, there are 2 different revelations that he's looking for. The one type of revealment was already in his time. That was as we'll see, one aspect. One of these daughters, as it were. Each one of these daughters is like a land inside the land of Israel. So he wanted both of them.
So the second one would be only after the Beis Mikdash would be built.
Right. And that's what he needed. So how does it work? When the Beis Mikdash was in existence, there were 2 aspects of Hashem's light shining in Eretz Yisrael. And the main thing, like we see by David himself, is that his Malchus, Rachel's Malchus, is that Hashem was revealed through David's speech. He's the master of speech. It's what we call Amar Malka Kar Tura. The king speaks and he uproots a mountain. The power of his speech is in David. Of course, one would right away have to say, but David is not a descendant of Rachel. He's a descendant of Leah. So that becomes one of the biggest questions in the Ari. We have all kinds of answers for it. But just to keep it in mind, that Rachel is the power of speech, and David is the power of speech. In fact, he takes over Rachel's place. He takes over her place in the Merkava, because she was in Malchus before him, before it was called Iyar. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Rachel. And then when David came along, so he replaced Rachel in that space of the Malchus. He took over. So the simple answer that's given is that really Yehuda, the 4th son of Leah, was not her son, because they knew that Yaakov was supposed to have 12 tribes. So Leah already had 3 children, and suddenly she has a 4th one. So it wouldn't divide evenly between the 4 wives. Each one was supposed to have 3. So that's why Leah says about her 4th child, "Apam modeh et Hashem." This time I will praise and thank Hashem. Why? Because he's done more with me than he should have done. That all he should have done was to give me 3. But the 4th child, Yehuda, really wasn't hers. It was really Rachel's. So the kingship really does come in a certain sense. It's a very interesting thing. It's like Rachel's child in the spiritual realm, who physically came out through Leah.
Wow.
So he has a very interesting combination. The tribe of Yehuda in general, That's why it's the only tribe, you could say, that has Hashem's name in it, Yud Kei Vav Kei, with a Dalet, with the meekness of the Dalet in it. And David is a descendant of Yehuda, he's a descendant of Leah, but really in the depth of it, spiritually, they were really meant to come through Rachel. Why? So why is Rachel the Ikar? That she's called a Keret Habayit. She's the main part of the home. Because in the end, what is revealed is the speech. When a person thinks, you can't see anything. There's no light coming out. There's no expression. It's only between him and himself. So we call it Ora Meir Le'atzmo, light that shines only to him. But when a person speaks, it's revealed outwardly. So she's the Akeret Habayit. She's the main aspect of the home. And because Rachel, she's the aspect of speech, which is the revealed world, it reveals the person's existence. So because Rachel was there, and Rachel is called the Shechina, and what David really wanted was that all the thought, that the world of thought would be revealed through the speech. So that's why he wanted to build the Beis Hamikdash, which is the Bayit. So Rachel is the Keret Habayit. She's the main aspect of the Beis Hamikdash, and that's what it means that Hashem's word is heard from the Beis Hamikdash. It's a revelation of Hashem's words, not just of His thought. It's a little bit different again, because thought is, any wise man has thought, but the difference between a wise man and a leader is that a leader also has speech, also has the power of speech. So that's why he wanted the Beis Hamikdash, because David wanted to consolidate. He understood the value of being able to speak. So he knew Hashem also wanted to speak. He didn't just want to come into thought in the way of thinking of the Torah. He also wanted new Torah to come out through Torah Shabbat.
What's the difference between the Mishkan and the Beis Hamikdash?
Mishkan also there was, but it's not the same. It's not. It's what we called it from the Mishkan. The revelation was only to the wise, only to certain people. But in the Mikdash, everybody who came, every single person who came had some kind of revelation, had some measure of Ruach HaKodesh that he received, okay, of the divine spirit. So at that time, when the Beis Hamikdash was in existence, so there were great people in Am Yisrael. Ayu Chachamim Dolim. On the one hand, they were very wise. That's Leah. That's the world of thought. And Baalei Ruach HaKodesh u'Nevi'im. And they also were able to speak it. Okay. So that's a very important thing. It means, in other words, that even that after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, so even though there's still the wisdom is there, but there's no ability to say it at the same level of expression that they were able to. So how do we see the difference? There's only 24 books that are part of the Tanakh, that the words themselves are holy. Of course, we consider also the Gemara to be holy, but the sayings themselves of the sages, you can't be medayik at the same level. You can't treat them exactly the same way that you treat what the prophets say, because the prophets and the Chachamim, like Shlomo Amel and so on, that are in the Tanakh, the book itself has kedusha. The way they said it has kedusha, has holiness. And later it's just the wisdom. In the Gemara it's just the wisdom. And then we have a very interesting thing, that there's a principle, the nevuah, the prophecy, and the main thing about the prophet is his ability to express. And wise men there were always, and prophets also were wise men. The big chiddush was that not only were they wise, but they were able to express their words in a holy way. One of the main things is that they created the language, and they built the language. ובפרט בית המקדש והשראת השכינה בקודש הקודשים ואורים וטובים ועבודת הקורבנות שהיה יורד האש שלמעלה. And you see all these expressions, meaning that he's telling us Rachel is not just the speech of the prophets. It's everything that's a revelation. So it was revealed in many ways. So there was what we call the divine presence in Kodesh HaKodeshim, and the Urim Tumim, that the king and the prophet could ask questions of Hashem and receive an answer in some way through the Urim Tumim. And Avodat HaKorbanot, and even in the divine service of the sacrifices, so the fire would come from above. They would see it descending. So there were many, many revelations, and all these have to do with Shechina. Which is not the case anymore after the temple was destroyed. Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, and Am Yisrael went out to Golus. And the Shechina, this Rachel, this aspect of divine expression, of words, of letters of speech, they went with us out into exile. And this is B'chinat Rachel, she'hi b'chinat galut b'shivim sarim, ve'ina mira klal me'erech hagilui, she'ayta mira b'zman habayit she'ha dibur mitgale. And Rachel can no longer reveal herself the way she did when the Beis Hamikdash existed, and therefore there's no kingship in Am Yisrael. That's the main thing. Like we said, that the king is the power of speech. Leadership is the power of speech. So if the speech is in exile, so you can't find a leader. It's very hard. So what is it called? It's called that in all aspects, we're under the Shivim Sarim, the 70 ministers, the angelic ministers of the nations. And they decide, they lead the world, and we have to receive through them. We are still connected only to Hashem, but it's like that we received from them.
Is this why she's, I still don't understand geographically how that's even possible, but she's buried outside of Israel?
She's not buried outside of Israel.
But isn't she? I know where she's buried.
Yeah, so why would you say it's outside of Israel?
But it says, in the Midrash, that she's on the road
to Hebron, or Bethlehem. No, she's not.
Saying that she's there welcoming her children, calling her children back.
So there's another aspect that she was there at the very end. It's like the place that she's. It's like a crossroads. She's on a crossroads. It's not it's a place where you bury people. Mm-hmm. If you want to bury people, give them rest. So you put them where people don't pass. And she's on a crossroads because she's there to ask for them, or to supplicate for them when they're going out to exile. So it means, in some sense, yes, she's connected to exile. She has this possibility of being inside or being outside, being in exile or not being in exile. But she's not buried outside of Eretz Yisrael. She's inside Eretz Yisrael, but on a crossroads. So now he says, "Ma she'en ken achshav, k'tiv k'rachel lifnei gozazeh ha'ne'elama." So it's a very important pasuk. And this pasuk, there's a lot. They changed also the pages here. Very interesting. I at home have an earlier version of Torah Or, and incredibly, they completely changed the Marei Mekomas at the end. I keep forgetting. But now they're much they're far more expanded. The Imam has changed them. So we have this pasuk in Yeshaya Nun Gimel. Rachel lifnei gozazeh ha'ne'elama. The Rachel really is talking about that Am Yisrael is like a ewe, like a sheep, like a female sheep, little sheep, who can't speak when she's being sheared, like when her wool is being taken off. But it's taken as also talking about Rachel herself. And somehow Rachel has no pitchon peh, she has no ability to open her mouth. And so because of this, v'avodah hi b'derech birurim. So when she can't speak, so in general this is a big deal. Who has most of the speech in the world? The women have. So it's also understood, right, the 10 measures of speech were brought down into the world, and women took 9. So it also means that instead of being used for good things, it's used for negative things. then instead of using it to lead, especially like he says, to lead the household, and leadership, the difference between leadership and between Torah is leadership is changing all the time. A leader has to read the news. He has to know what's going on. Otherwise, how can he function? So he has to go to the mikveh. He has to hear what the nayas is. If he doesn't hear it, he can't lead. But a chacham doesn't need it. A chacham doesn't need at all to lead. There's a very interesting thing I saw this morning from the Rambam. It's an article by George Sarton. George Sarton was the biggest researcher. He basically created the discipline of history of science. And one of the things he was very interested in was Rambam. So even though he was a non-Jew, he was in America, and he wasn't even no connection, but he adores the Rambam. He thinks the Rambam is the best thing in the world. He even writes. It's an amazing thing that I saw this morning. Yesterday on Shabbos, I saw it when I was reading it somewhere. So I saw that he writes something incredible. He writes that exactly something we just put out in the new book. Neither of you guys saw it. The new book out on Torah and Science. So he wrote there that the Rambam was the last time that anybody was able to unite science with Torah. Basically, Rambam took the Aristotelian science and used it to prove what he wanted, which was that Hashem runs the world. That's a whole millennium Vuchim in a nutshell. That's what he really wants to say, and it's a rationalist point of view. And in general, that's his argument. So Sarton writes there that who would give us another Rambam finally, because he feels that the world, he knows it's not going to come from the non-Jews.
He needs a contemporary Rambam.
No, Sarton passed away in 58. So he writes in 1945, he writes, who will give us another Rambam today, who will today unite the science that we have now with Torah. As a non-Jew, he says, you have to combine it. You can't leave it the way it is. It doesn't make any sense that there are two disciplines that are so separate one from another. So another thing he wrote, he brought a quote. There was a Jew here in Eretz Yisrael in the 30s, 40s, 50s. His name was Zusman Muntner. He's a Yek. And he did all the work on the Rambam's writings in Arabic, the non-halachic writings, not the Mullah. He did all that, on all the medical writings and everything else that he had. And you see something incredible. You'll appreciate this. But the Rambam writes to a fellow doctor, never accept for a fact what somebody else tells you that they did or worked. And he gives an incredible reason for it, because he says where it has to do with a person's fame or with the money they might make, you can't trust them in what they say. You simply cannot trust them. So because you can't trust them, so you can't accept what people call empirical evidence. It's incredible. He says you should only use your mind and only use your seichel. If your seichel tells you philosophically this could be, so accept it. But if this runs against the grain of your understanding, and where do you get your understanding from? From Aristotle, from Galen, from Hippocrates, from all these people who searched the philosophy of medicine. So then you can trust what they say. What do we say today? Exactly the opposite.
Empirical evidence.
It's only empirical evidence. I only trust what people tell me they saw. And I don't trust at all the essentialist understanding that I have. So, maybe in basic research, no, let's say that I can believe that it's a good argument, but when it comes to the pharmaceutical industry, what are you talking about? The only thing that they care about, the only thing that they exist for is to make money. They're not there to heal people.
No.
It's a pharmaceutical, and it's not basic research. It's not a doctor in a hospital who's taking care of people. It's people who never see the patients, and in the end they're just pushing pills. So how can you trust them? How can you trust them? Stop. I'm not saying not to trust them. I'm just saying that that's the difference. The difference between thought, philosophy, and what you do, what you say, which changes all the time, which is liable to all kinds of circumstances, all kinds of pressures, and all kinds of interests. Okay. So in that sense, a leader, no, Nebuch, he can't be a philosopher. He's going to be a philosopher. He won't understand what people are talking about. Because what are people talking about? People in the world talking about money, they're talking about power, they're talking about this, talking about that. That's the letters of speech. And that's called Chayei Sha'ah. So davening is Chayei Sha'ah. You daven, you say something that's now, it's what I need now, and not what I need, not in theory what I need. What I need right now. That changes from moment to moment. A leader has to be attuned to what's going on at the moment.
Unless he's a king.
Especially a king. Especially a king.
David Melech and Shlomo Melech were philosophers in their own right.
Where do you see that? Shlomo, maybe. It didn't do him very well. But David's completely at the moment. All his prayers, everything that we have until him is what's going on with him at this moment. And he's attuned to the people around him. He's like Yirmiyahu. He's like a guy who's completely in the politics. He's always being trying to stay one step ahead of the detractors, the ones that were against him, and so on. So a king has to be, that's leadership. That's what it means. That it's Chayei Sha'ah, it's called. But when you don't have that, when you don't have that type of experience, which is the holiness in, or the revelation of Hashem in the day-to-day actions. So then all you're left with is avodah b'derech biruvim. All you're left with is that you have to do things through chokhmah, through your mind. It's called b'chokhmah yitbariru. That your mind, it clarifies, it cleans up the area, but you can't do it in practice because it won't stick. What I'm saying is that Yiddishkeit becomes much more inward. It goes inward instead of outward. So it's not dealing with a certain problem today, I don't know, in Sri Lanka, I don't know, or wherever. It's dealing with the sugya and the Gemara. So, imagine if you had a king who would come like Shlomo Melech and would come and solve their problem because of Torah. But their problem, not some sugya in the Gemara. So what a Kiddush Shem Shemayim is. Look at, and it's exactly what Shlomo tried to do. He tried to show that everything in the world is connected to Torah. I can tell you something about it because of the Torah.
He could have easily solved a different person's problem using the same sugya.
That's what he did. That's called Shoshtatim Mashal. He spoke 3,000 parables, one for each level of every person. But he knew how to speak it. He knew how to connect to the person who's in front of you. That's leadership. Leadership requires you to relate to reality. Chokhmah said, so you can sit in a room. You don't need to be connected to reality. You don't need it. Mamash, you don't need it. It's a sugya. It's an issue. I learn inside a closed room on a stender, and that's it. And that itself clarifies the world. But it's obviously a different way of doing it than if you would actually go into the world and solve the problem. Apply it. Anyway, these are the two types of, some more about understanding what these two types of language are, the intellectual language and the speech language. Two types of expression. And what it means that one is inward and one goes outward. So because there's no Rachel is shut up, she's closed. She can't speak. So the clarification goes in what we call biruvim, and that we'll need to speak more about to explain exactly what he means here. But he means in principle it's b'chokhmah yitbariru, that is through wisdom and not through speech. But even though Rachel went out, the Shechina went out in Golus, Leah is still here in Eretz Yisrael, even during the time of Golus, meaning that the mind of the Torah is still here, but not the expression of it, or the mind of the Jewish people, not the expression. And Leah is in that sense higher than Rachel. So we're beginning to understand why, or we might begin to understand why Yaakov didn't connect with Leah. He even hated her, while he loved Rachel. We'll say this in a moment more clearly. So the machshava, the thought, which is Leah, is higher than the speech. She'eina begalut, and thought is not in galus, it never went out into exile. לכן נקראת מם פתוחה, שיש ממנה פתח ומבוא ליניקת החיצונים בזמן הגלות, מה שאין כמבחינת מם סתומה. And how you should see them is that they're called the final mem and the regular mem. So Rachel is the open mem, the regular mem, and it has an opening. Because it has an opening, so the chitzonim, the klipas, can come and take energy from it. But Leah is the closed mem. Okay? She's the mem that's closed, the final mem. It's like a square, and she's very square in that sense. This goes into many things in the Arizal we won't discuss now, but it's all connected to Olam HaMalbush, to what existed before the first contraction. V'shamu shoresh Leah, and Leah comes from these 13 mems that were left over from Olam HaMalbush, as it says in Zohar, Rish Parashat Uma, Daf Kuf Kavav, Daf Kuf Kav Zayin. Ach lefi shehi almadit kasya, but because she is almadit kasya, she is the concealed world. לכך אין הגילוי אלוקות עכשיו בארץ ישראל מערך הגילוי שהיה בזמן בית המקדש קיים. So it's very hard to reveal Hashem even in thought here because there's no expression of it. It's hard to do thought without any kind of expression. So it's not that it doesn't exist, but it's harder to get to it, even in Eretz Yisrael. מכל מקום, הצדיקים הגדולים אשר בארץ יכולים להשיג עכשיו בארץ ישראל השגות עליונות יותר, אפילו ממה שהשיגו צדיקים כמותם בזמן הבית. Yet those who are tzaddikim from themselves, they keep all the mitzvos from the way that they are, because motivated by who they are, not because of the revelation of the Shekhinah and Beis HaMikdash, just because of the Shekhinah, like in themselves, like in their hearts. They have this affinity to Hashem that keeps them true to all of halacha, so they can reveal in Eretz Yisrael even more than what could be revealed in the time of the Beis HaMikdash. Why? Because here you have to understand that pure thought, in the end, is greater than if you are also dealing with something practical. Meaning, if a person is like, even if a very, very smart person, you take them to be a minister in the government, so they think less. They can't think as much as they did before. To really think, you have to be free of dealing with the external world. And so in Eretz Yisrael, because Leah is still here, so you can come to an even higher level. Who's he referring to? Of course, who's saying all this? Arizal is saying all this, and he's referring to himself. Arizal here is saying that that's why I was able to attain understanding that wasn't available in previous generations.
Because he was able to seclude himself on the island?
Because there's no Rachel here. Because there's no revealed speech. It's not confusing you, the speech.
Hang on a second. He was out in Egypt.
Rizal is here in Eretz Yisrael. His teachings, his real teachings.
After he came to Eretz Yisrael.
Of course. He didn't have these understandings. He had to come to Eretz Yisrael for it. Ukmo Arizal, and like the Arizal, שהשיג השגות עצומות מה שלא השיגו צדיקים גדולים בדורות הקודמים. This is now his mama's quoting from him. Okay, so that's we should end now, because this is a lot to take in. This is a very condensed thing, and so also I'm writing out about it. This is also a good reason.
I'll ask a question.